I think it's time we should get started now. Welcome to Microsoft Excel Basics. My name is Maggie. I am a librarian here with the Plano Public Library. We also have Bonnie joining us, another librarian. She's going to be helping us facilitate the chat. And then we have Nova joining us to help with any technological challenges. So feel free to reach out in that chat if you have any questions. This class has been designed around knowing some basic computer skills, including using the mouse and keyboard. If you do need to brush up or wish to learn about basic computer skills, we do have some online resources for you. So I will try to take it slow in case you are practicing along with me. So thank you in advance for your patience. Again, I want to welcome you to Microsoft Excel Basics. The goal for today's class is to get to know the program and some of its tools and hopefully walk away feeling a little bit more comfortable using Microsoft Excel. So as I previously mentioned in the email for this class, there's a link at the bottom that links you to a Google Drive. And this is the link to the spreadsheet that I will be using. So let me back out of that and show you. And I apologize in advance if you hear my dog make some noises like she's doing now. All right. Here's what you should see when you open that link from the email. We'll double click to open. And we need to download it in order to open it in Excel. Over here in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a downward arrow to download. I'm going to click on that. And it's downloading here in the bottom left-hand corner. Going to double click to open. And here we have our practice spreadsheet for today's class. This is a document with a list of employees and their monthly sales figures for a year. We will start to organize, calculate, and print this data after a brief review of the program and where things are from top to bottom. So up at the very top of your screen is what is called the Quick Access Toolbar, which includes your Save button, that floppy disk, an Undo button, a Redo button, and the option to add more tools to your Quick Access Toolbar. One tool I like to add to my Quick Access Toolbar is spell check. So we click on that arrow, find spelling, and there we go. We now have spell check in our Quick Access Toolbar. If you want to remove it, you just right click and there's the option to remove. And in the middle of the screen, you'll see the name of the document. So below that is what is called the ribbon. It's all your major tools that you will use while working on your spreadsheet. So the first tab is the File tab. And that includes all your options to save, print, etc. We can back out of that clicking on the left arrow and move next to the Home tab, which is our default tab with all the major tools and all the tools that we'll be using in today's class. They are on the Home tab as they are the most commonly used tools throughout the program. These tools include selecting font type, size, bold, color, whether you want it to the left or the middle or to the right. Next box is number formatting. We'll use that in just a little bit. Next to that are some style options. It might look a little bit different depending on the version of Excel you are using. So you might see that, you might not, but there's some style options right here. You'll see that in other tabs as well. And next to that are your insert and deleting options along with formatting. Next to that, I want to point out right here are some formulas. And we'll click on the downward arrow These are the most commonly used formulas added to our Home tab for quick access. And next to that, we have some sorting and filtering options, and then your find and selecting tools. All right, moving on to the next tab in the ribbon, we have Insert, where you can add various charts. Perhaps you want to add a hyperlink to a web address or an email address. You can add a header and footer, which will appear on printed pages of your spreadsheet. The next tab we'll want to look at is Page Layout. This is where you can select your print area, your margins, the orientation, what you want your spreadsheet to look like when you send it to the printer. The next tab is Formulas. Now, this includes all the possible formulas you would want to use with your data. Excel has it all for you. The next tab is the Data tab. And this is where you can filter, sort, and streamline the look and function of your data. The next tab over is Review. This is great when you are working with others on a spreadsheet. You can share comments, track changes, protect who can edit and who cannot. The next tab is our View tab, and it determines what your screen will look like as you work. And the last tab is the Developer tab with Macros. Macros are for the more advanced user in order to automate some of the processes you do in Excel. And unfortunately, that's not what we'll cover in our basics class, but certainly something interesting to learn. Okay, let's go back to the Home tab. And just below the ribbon, we have what is called the formula bar, circling it right now. The formula bar will show text or formulas in use for whichever applies to that cell. So right now, the cell I've selected has 418, and that is what appears in our formula box. I'll click on Ricky, and now we'll see Ricky here. You can edit your text in the cell, or you can edit in your formula bar. So below our formula bar, we start to see our column headings, which are alphabetical. And then our row headings are numerical. You cannot change these headings, unfortunately. The column headings will always be A, B, C, D, etc. And the row headings will always be 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. It's important they're labeled that way, because I'm about to tell you. Each box is called a cell. And when I click on a cell, the name of the cell appears here in the name box. So the cell I have selected is in column D and row 4. That's the name of the cell box. Let me try another one over here. It's in column H and row 8. Last one over here, September is in J1. So that is what is in the name box. The cell names will be super helpful when it comes to utilizing formulas. So we'll see that in action in just a little bit. So this is known as a sheet. And down here at the bottom, you can have multiple sheets in your workbook. And we'll work on that a little bit later towards the end of the class to see how that works. And then I want to show you down in the bottom right-hand corner is where you can zoom in on your screen, which I will do just to bring our data a little bit closer and bigger for all of you to see. And there we go. Let's get started and work to organize, calculate, and make our data here look great. Hope you're ready. So first of all, I'm seeing that some of the data is Specifically, the names of the months up here in our first row are a little squished. So let's go ahead and edit the width of the cells. When we hover our cursor in between the column headings, you'll see the cursor turn into a black vertical line with two arrows, one to the left and one to the right. So we can click and drag to change the width of our column, or you can double click and it will automatically best fit to the column size. But I'm not a big fan of all my columns being different sizes. I like everything to be pretty equal. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust all the column widths at one time. Up here in the upper left-hand corner of the spreadsheet is an arrow. And when you click on that, it will highlight your whole sheet. Next, to change the width of our columns, let's head over here to Format, right here on the right-hand side. Click, and then click on Column Width. So, I'm gonna try a low number just to see what that does. So let's see what happens when I type in a 2 and hit OK. Oh my goodness, it squished my data. That's okay, we have our nifty undo button. Undo will be your best friend while you work to get to know Excel. Undo. The spreadsheet is still highlighted, so let's go back to Format. Click on Column Width, and let's try 10 this time. That looks great. I like that. We'll stick with 10. All right. I hope everybody's good so far. Next, I want to differentiate the colors of my cells for the month headings just to give it a unique look and see where my data starts. So to add a fill color to cells, I'm going to click on January and drag all the way to December to highlight all of our cells with the months, and then find the paint bucket here. Click on the arrow to see all your options. I'm going to choose a nice, lovely blue. And there we go. Our monthly headings look a little bit different from our numbers, so we can differentiate where our data starts and where we can go from here. So for the sake of organization of my data, I want to list the employees in alphabetical order. To do that, going to click on the column heading with our employees listed, which will highlight the whole column. Let's come over here to the right-hand side to find Sort and Filter. Click, and click on Sort A to Z. So it's popping up with a sort warning. It's asking you what you want to do with your selection. So most of the time, probably 99% of the time, you'll want to expand your selection. What that will do is that it will sort your selection with the rest of the data. So Randy's numbers don't accidentally get now put with Mary Jo or vice versa. That's what would happen if you selected continue with the current selection. It would only alphabetize our current column and keep all the data as it is. And that would mess up all my numbers. So typically you'll stick with expand the selection. So Wanda's numbers throughout the year stay with her and Louisa's stay with her. So we'll sort. There we go. Our employees are now in alphabetical order. But I just realized we are missing an employee from our spreadsheet. Oh no. Time to add a row for Stephen. So let me show you how to insert a row. Over here on the right-hand side, there's an option for inserting cells. Click. You can add a single cell, which is interesting. I'm not sure I ever really use that. Typically, I'll insert a whole row or a column. So let's insert a row for Stephen. But as you can see, it added a row above Mary Jo. Now, I just sorted my employees in alphabetical order. And Stephen should go right here in between Ricky and Wanda. So I'm going to undo. Let's click a cell in Wanda's row in order to add that row above her and below Ricky. So insert, row. Now we can add in Stephen. We have Stephen's sales numbers. For January, it is 315, 845, 707, 928, 348, 46 for June, 47 for July, 52 for August, 687, 768, 925, and 816. Great. Stephen has been added to the spreadsheet. How's everybody doing? Are we good? Okay. Now, I'm interested in knowing the total sales for each employee throughout the year. So I'm going to add a new column because I want to put that figure right next to their name so I don't have to look from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen to see their total sales. So that means we got to insert a column. So just as a row inserted above your current cell selection, the columns will be inserted to the left. So we'll want to click a cell in column B in order to add a column between A and B. So let's click Insert and Column. And now we have a new column that we can label Total Sales. And while we're up here, let's go ahead and label column A Employee. Just so we have headings all across our first row here. All right. Now that the column is ready, we can start doing some calculations. For total sales, we are calculating the total sum of each employee's monthly sales figure throughout the year. So while in the cell, we're in cell B2 for Betty to figure out her total sales. Going to come over here to our formulas on the Home tab and click on AutoSum. So it started our formula here. Now we need to add in our figures. So click in January and drag it on out to December. You'll see in our formula showing here and also in the formula bar that our formula is equals sign, sum, open parentheses, the name of the first cell of the data, a colon, which means include all the numbers in between C2 and N2, the name for our last column and row. And we'll hit enter. And there we go. We have our total sales figure for the year for Betty. Let me show you again. When I click on the cell, the formula appears here in our formula bar. So I'm going to now type out the formula, which as you get more and more comfortable with Excel, you'll be able to type out your formulas and do those with ease. So the formula starts with this equal sign. Our formula is sum, open parentheses. Our first data set is in C3, the colon. So we extend our data throughout this whole range to N3. Doesn't matter if you capitalize or lowercase, it'll figure it out. And close parentheses. Hit enter. And there we go. We now have total sales figures for Colton by doing it another way around. So instead of adding our formula to every cell in this column, we can use this autofill function in Excel. So I'm going to click on the total sales figures for Colton in column B, row 3. You'll notice this square, little square, bold square down in the right-hand corner of the cell. And when you put your cursor on it, it becomes a plus sign. So when it's a plus sign, you can click and drag all the way down to Wanda. And it will add the sum formula to each of our rows for all of our employees, autofilling it with the data we want. I'm going to go ahead and I want to bold my total sales figures so they really pop and add another fill color. So I'm going to click on the first row, drag down to highlight, and we'll find bold right here. Click. And then add a fill color. Let's add a nice bright yellow to help it really pop. There we go. We have our total sales figures for all of our employees so we can see how they did throughout the year. How's everybody doing? All right. Now, I'm going to show you custom sort because I'm interested in organizing the employees by the total sales, but keep them in alphabetical order. This is highly useful if you have rows and rows and rows of data. It might not seem so applicable with our data here since there's only a few handful of employees, but custom sort will be your best friend when you have rows of data that you want to sort and get them in an organized way. So let's click on the arrow in the upper left-hand corner of the sheet to highlight. Come back over here to the right side for sort and filter and click on custom sort. So now we have our options. I want to do first sort by total sales. We'll sort on the values. And the default was to do smallest to largest, but I want to change that because I want to see my high earners, what they're doing. Who are those people? So let's do largest to smallest and add another level to sort. We'll sort by alphabetical order by the employee's name. So let's choose employee and A to Z. Good to go. All right. So we'll click OK. Now I have sorted all the employees by total sales, who's done the best, it's Wanda. And just in case we had rows and rows of data, it's still in alphabetical order based on total sales. It's just doing that sorting layer by layer by layer. So Now I'm interested in knowing the average sales per month for all my employees. We'll start with January. Going to click on the cell below page rail. Come over here to find the average formula. Since it's a popular one, it is on our home tab here. Click on the down arrow next to AutoSum and we'll see average. So Excel is pretty smart. It tries to figure out what you're trying to calculate, and most of the time it'll do a pretty good job. So there it is. It is pulling exactly the numbers that I wanted to add up and do an average for all of January. So all I'd have to do is hit enter. And there we go. We have an average for January. You can also do it another way. That's the story of Excel. You can always do things another way. There's multiple options to getting to the end result. So in February, I'm going to click and drag to highlight all my employees' sales figures for February. Come over here to our formula options and find average. And there we go. This way, I was telling Excel the exact cells I want to include in my formula. Excel did a pretty good job with January, but in case you have a little bit of doubt about Excel, you can do it this way. These are the numbers I want to do an average with. So just like the sum formula, you can autofill it to extend it to the rest of the year. There is that square in the bottom right-hand corner of the cell. When the cursor is a plus sign, you'll click and drag it on out. And there we go. We now have averages for all of our months in this year. But I'm not a big fan of 4 decimal points. Seems a bit much. So I'm going to click and highlight this row of numbers. Come up here to the Home tab and find the number formatting section, which will be here in the middle. The drop-down option, you can do a number just like that, but I'm going to show you the rest. Some currency if you wanted to add $sign. If they're dates, you can dictate that you want it a short date or a long date. The time, whether you want to do percentage, fraction, scientific notation, or keep it as text. Don't really mess with it. Let's go ahead and click on number, see what that does. All right, just as the number showed in the example in this drop-down option, it gave to 2 decimal points. But we can change that. Let's go down here to more number formats. And I like using this screen as opposed to just picking an option in that drop-down menu because it gives you examples as you click on the various options. See the sample? I really like that. So let's go back to number because it is a number here we're using. And the default is 2 decimal places. The rest of my data are whole numbers, so I'm just going to drop down to 0 decimal places. Click OK, and there we go. All of our numbers are whole numbers to match the rest of our data. Your formatting is really what you want your data to reflect and how you want it to look and how you want it to use it for your reports, for your calculations. Make it work for you is what I'm saying. Also, I'm going to go ahead and bold while I have it highlighted to help keep our averages here separate from our monthly numbers of all of our employees. I just really like to differentiate all the different types of data. So when you're looking at it, you see those differences right away. So now I want to show you one of my favorite tools for when you are using rows and rows and columns of data. You can freeze rows and columns, so you don't have to scroll down. So let me show you. I'm just going to click here in the middle of the spreadsheet, go up here to View, find the View tab, and there's an option for Freeze Panes. So right here, there is an option to freeze the top row. Let's go ahead and do that. When that happens, you'll see a bolded line, not really bold, but a distinguishable line here under the first row. And that just shows that your first row is going to stay static and move with you as you scroll throughout your spreadsheet. It's great when you have rows of data. So if I had an employee down here in row 38, I can still see what they are doing in August. So let's scroll back up. Once you freeze a pane, the option now appears to unfreeze panes. Let's try this again, but this time we'll freeze the first column. Again, you'll see a thicker line appear after first column in between column A and B. So as you move to the right, you'll see your employee's name still listed there. Let's unfreeze. And now there is an option to freeze both a row and a column at the same exact time. So let's go back to Freeze Panes. Click on the option Freeze Panes. Now what this does, just like you're inserting a column or row, it freezes the row above and the column to the left. So I'm scrolling down, all my data above is frozen, and all my data to the left is frozen. Unfreeze. This is especially helpful when you want to keep your first column and your first row static. So let's click on B2, freeze panes again, and there we go. We have our first row static and our first column static. Again, super helpful when you have rows and rows, columns and columns of data. I'm just gonna unfreeze that as we move along. How's everybody doing? Are we doing good? All right. So the data we are looking at here is for 1 calendar year, taking up 1 sheet. I'm interested in duplicating this sheet for the next calendar year in a separate sheet. So down at the bottom of Excel, you'll see sheet 1. Right-click on that and click on Move or Copy. So it's going to click the box to make a copy, and I'm going to move it to the end because I want it after the sheet. We'll click OK. And there we go. We have sheet 1 and sheet 1 part 2. That's kind of confusing. So let's rename our sheets, which you can do really easy. Let's right-click on sheet 1 and click on Rename. It'll highlight the text so you can just type over. So this data is from 2019. There we go. Or another option, because in Excel, there's always multiple ways of doing things. You can double-click on the text to highlight and type over. So this sheet will be our 2020 data. That's what you want to do if you want to duplicate your current sheet. You can easily add a new sheet by clicking the plus sign here, but it's just going to be a blank sheet. It won't copy any of the data that you have been currently working on. So I'm going to delete that, which is right-click and delete. We're back to 2020. So I duplicated it because I want to keep all my formulas for 2020. Pretty easy to do. What I'm going to do is click and drag all my data from 2019 for all my employees, highlight all those numbers, and find the delete button on my keyboard and delete. What it does is that it has kept all my formulas in place, even though they look a little funny. They're still there. Let me show you. So for Wanda, let's say we had her sales figures for 325 for January and 416 for March. We had Colton's sales numbers for January, 221. As we type in our sales figures, the formulas are still in action, providing us those average sales and total sales for the year thus far. Cool, huh? Okay. I'm going to move back over to our 2019 sheet here. And I want to add a title to my spreadsheet here. So that involves inserting a row. So remember, rows insert directly above your current selection, or in columns insert directly to the left of your current cell selection. So I want to select here in our first row. Let's go back to our home tab to find insert row. And here we go. So I'm going to add a title for my sheet here, which is total sales for employees 2019. That looks a little funny. What's it? It's taking our text and then extending it into the other cells, which certainly can work. But again, I'm a stickler for my sheet looking pretty good. So what you can do is merge and center. What you'll want to do is click and drag to highlight a selection to use for merge and center. And let's click on merge and center. And there we go. It did exactly that. It merged all the cells I selected into one larger cell and then centers the text within that cell. Let's go ahead and add another fun color here. Let's do green. Okay. So what if you have text, like we saw with our title, that starts to go into another cell? Like I'll type here, average sales 2019. Here we go. Click out of that and my text disappeared. Oh no. That's okay. I'm going to click on our cell and do wrapped text. Interesting. It's still problematic because we need to adjust the height of our row to see our full text. So the first step we did earlier in this class, hover your cursor in between the row headings until you see the horizontal line with the arrow pointing up and arrow pointing down. You can either extend it that way or double click to have it autofill that way. So that is how you would do wrap text. I'll do that again. That will say, thank you for attending today's class. Going to wrap our text, double click, and there we go. So I think I'm about ready to print my 2019 report. But first, it is always a good idea to do spell check before printing or emailing out your data. So I added spell check up here to my quick access toolbar. We'll spell check. Oh. And it asks, do you want to continue checking at the beginning of the sheet because I have this current cell selected down here at the bottom? Yes, please. And April, we got to spell April right, so let's change that. And spell check is complete. You're good to go. Thanks, Excel. Okay. So we'll come up here to File for our print options. Print. And we have quite a few options here to print our data. So the first option is to print an active sheet. So this would only print the 2019 sheet. If I wanted to print the entire workbook, both the 2019 sheet and the 2020 sheet, I would select print entire workbook. And then if I only wanted to print a part of the sheet that you have to highlight beforehand, extremely helpful. Again, if you have rows and rows and rows of data, you can just print a selection, but you have to highlight it first. So that is an option here. The next option you'll want to take a look at as you print your data is the orientation. This is particularly important with Excel to print in portrait or landscape. So portrait works great if you just have a good amount of columns, but rows and rows of data. Now, if it's the other way around, you have lots of columns, you might want to try the landscape orientation. It's kind of really what you're looking for on your report as you print out. So you might have to play with it just a little bit and see what works and whether you can see your data or not. Another option down here at the bottom that's pretty important is no scaling, but you click on that. It'll just print sheets at their actual size, not doing any scaling, not condensing columns, which you can do. You can fit all columns onto one page, or you can fit all rows onto one page. That can be problematic, just warning you ahead of time. It might shrink your data so it's not legible. So play with it, see what works for you. And fitting sheet onto one page will certainly work for our data that we're doing today, but barely. It got a little bit squished. If you have those rows and rows of data, it's not recommended. All right. That is an introduction to Excel and organizing and doing some calculation and making our spreadsheet look great. Do we have any questions that I can help address?
Hey Maggie, it's Bonnie.
Hello, Bonnie.
So you have been an amazing teacher and we have amazing students. Currently, we don't have any more questions in the chat, but if you're gonna have a few minutes to wrap up, maybe then we can give everyone one last chance to throw in a question if they have one. Just type it into the chat.
Yeah, type ahead. And while you do that, I want to show you a few of the library resources that we have. So I'm going to go over here to our browser. As you know, we have access to lynda.com that you can get to from planolibrary.org, or maybe you're just learning it now, but we have access to Lynda, which is great for learning any sort of technical skills. You can get to that by clicking on Learn on our homepage and Research and Learn. Now, if you haven't visited this page recently, we have redone it, so take a look around. We have tried to organize it by topic to make it a little bit easier. So Lynda is featured throughout because it fits in with multiple topics like business. So here it is right here. You click on it. You do need a Plano library card in order to access. So when you click on that, it will get you to the login screen. I'll bypass that right now so you can jump on in and see. I did a simple search for Excel, and Lynda has over 6,000 options, which is great, but a little overwhelming. So if you want to continue your basics review, you can limit by skill level here on the left-hand side. So I'm going to click on beginner. And now we have just about 1,000 results. And Oz, this guy right here, he's a lot of fun to watch. I'd highly recommend his classes. He is fun. So Excel is there for you And just real quick, our blog page, planolibrarylearns.org, is where we post a lot of helpful resources for you. So if you want to get some more tech training, we have some options here at planolibrarylearns.org. All right, back to our spreadsheet for any questions.
So we had a question about adding headers and footers, and I just put that answer, but in case anyone else was interested, it looks like in the page layout tab is where you could work with headers and footers. But we just got in another question, and if they would make sure to correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, it looks like they're asking if you type the same words over and over again, is there a shortcut for that? So I'm wondering if maybe the kind of the auto, when it auto detects is what we're looking for, or maybe even a macro.
Probably something along those lines. So an autofill function of Excel. So if you have days of the week, just like that, as I'm typing here, we can click and drag it down and it will start to autofill that schedule. Now, I have done where I've typed in a lot of names, just like that, just same name over and over, and let's see if it will work for me again. It's been a while since I've done that. But if we click and drag, yeah, it will autofill with my name over and over again. So I wonder if that helps answer that question.
I think that probably will, but be sure, questioner, to let us know if it didn't. And we have another question that came in. Can you have a formula auto-populate to another sheet?
Auto-populate. Yes, yes, that is outside the scope of our basics class here. So I recommend going into Linda and checking out some of those Excel weekly tips courses, because there are very focused videos related to different options of Excel that go beyond what we're doing today in basics.
Okay, great, Maggie, thanks for that. And then we got follow-up on the repeated processes, and they said they were more interested in macros. So it sounds like the same answer you just gave about not quite in our Today Basics class, right?
Yeah, yes. Again, I recommend Linda. Let me pull back Linda back up. I've learned a lot of Excel. Let me click out of that. My filters here. There is an Excel Tips Weekly course. Let's see. I want to back out of that and watch now. And rows upon rows of Excel options. I've only gotten through maybe half of the options here. He just does really short focused videos on Excel tips, processes, any formulas you want to use, anything like that, charts, whatever. This series is great for getting little focused tidbits on learning parts of Excel that are beyond our basic course today.
Okay, thanks, Maggie. It looks like we had another more specific question come in. When you copy the first column into the middle of a spreadsheet for data in columns on the right, how do you print the second sheet on the right? I don't know if you might need more clarification on that question.
Yeah, not sure I'm following on that one. Can you repeat it?
When you copy the first column in the middle of a spreadsheet for data in columns on the right, how do you print the second sheet on right? So questioner, if you might be able to rephrase that.
The print options. Just going through the print options here to see if that helps at all. Yes, and the other question was header and footers, the option to insert here, and it will pop up with options to enter your header. Here. Tab to get to the various options, and then we'll go to footer and put in a date and close out just by clicking. It changes your view as you're working on your spreadsheet. I'm not a huge fan of adding headers and footers until the last moment, but if you need it to work with, it will just change the view of your screen just right there, and you can finagle it to get it back.
Okay, that's cool. They did come in with another way of phrasing that. How would you print the first column with the left side data? I'm wondering if maybe they mean the cell labels, like the row labels, to print those?
It should be fine. It'll just print your whole screen. But if you, guessing.
So I guess maybe it's if you wanted your employees or that data to have a number. If the employee list is on the left with the data on the right.
I'm still a little bit lost. I'm so sorry. I'm not quite understanding.
Okay, I think now we're getting more. I think this question assumes that the spreadsheet was too large, so it would need multiple sheets for printing. Now we're with you, I think.
Okay, okay, good. Yes, interesting. Yes. Keep if it continued on to another year on this same spreadsheet, how to keep the employees listed on the left-hand side for the multiple pages. Okay, I get it. Oh, that is a good question. I don't have a quick answer for that. I would have to really work through that. That might be a good research question. We have print tiles, choose rows and columns you'd like to repeat on each printed page. So that's on page layout. And it looks like you can rows to repeat, maybe something. Yeah, that might get you there. But that might be something you could practice yourself and see what happens. But print titles right here on page layout might get you to what you're asking.
Okay, that's a great tip. Thanks, Maggie.
Thank you. All right, we're approaching 2 o'clock, so we will start wrapping up. If there's any final questions we can answer, but otherwise, I thank you all for joining us today, and keep an eye out on our website for future classes, and we will see you next time.